Hi everyone, this is Lizzie Dan. I am out at the park with my kids. I recorded a video about how I am planning my VBAC. If you want to know how I've been preparing to have my VBAC, then stay tuned. I want to talk today about something that's very, very close to my heart and a project that I'm currently engaged in. I am 35 weeks pregnant and planning for a VBAC. This will be my first VBAC, so I want to talk about all of the things that I'm doing now to prepare to have the outcome that I want. So my VBAC story starts pretty shortly, actually, after my son was born. He's not my first child. My first child was born vaginally, and then my second child, it was a very long labor. I ended up having a failure to progress cesarean. And I had a little bit of hubris going into that birth, thinking that because I had already had a vaginal birth, I was inoculated against that specific outcome. My first birth had also been long, but I was assured by multiple people in my life, including my midwife, that second babies are just easier. And I believed her, and I didn't do much to prepare. And I regretted that after my son was born. So one of the things that I started doing immediately, almost after my son was born, was learning about birth, learning about VBAC, learning about cesareans, and failure to progress cesareans in particular, posteriority, which has to do with baby's position. It can contribute to long labors and is increasingly common these days. I just went down the research rabbit hole, and that's been a very long journey over the past 2 and more years. And I've decided that for myself, I need to troubleshoot all of the issues that came up, and I've also decided that I want to do that proactively. I don't want to do that during labor, and I also didn't want to start while I was pregnant. The second thing that I did and am doing is to eat really, really well. So I am eating a very, very close to a plant-based vegan diet, low to no added salt, low to no added sugar, low to no added oil, and also no meat, no fish, no dairy, no eggs. And I could talk more about in a later video why I've chosen that diet during my pregnancy. It's also how I eat in general. One of the things that happened with my son was that I wasn't in terribly good physical shape when my delivery date came around. I gained a lot of weight while I was pregnant with him, and he was a big baby. He was a lot bigger than my first child. I wanted to do what I could during this pregnancy to just maintain healthier weight gain for myself and hopefully for this baby. The third thing that I've done is to just get more active. So I joined a gym. I started walking more. Research indicates that walking is the best exercise for pregnant women. I don't particularly think that it has to be one form of exercise versus another. I also did Zumba really early on until I started feeling a little bit too unwieldy for that. Just generally making the intention to get more active. I try to walk whenever I can. My physical therapist talks about like functional integration. It doesn't necessarily have to be spending time at the gym for an hour a day, but just, being conscious of walking whenever you can, using public transportation whenever you can. I bought a Fitbit and have been keeping track of my activity. And I have found I really love my Fitbit. And I found that that's been really motivating. And another thing that I've done, as I mentioned before, was just to really indulge in research. The people who were supposed to be caring for me on that particular day, they weren't on their A game. And I realized afterwards, for you, the parent of this child and the parents of your baby, this is going to be one of the days, if not the day, in your life that sticks out the most. It's very, very high stakes for you in terms of how you're going to remember meeting your child. But
for everybody else who's involved, for your doula, for your midwife, for your OB, for the nurses that are attending you, this is another day at work. And they have lives, they have spouses, they have kids, they have friends and parents that they fight with. And you're not in control of whether or not they're going to have a good day at work that day or not. What I decided was that I couldn't depend on anybody else to show up for me on that day. I needed to know everything that I could as somebody who's not a birth professional about birth. I needed to know how to help myself. I needed my husband to know how to help me. And we needed to take responsibility for making this birth go well. So I've done a lot of research on VBAC and birth in general. I have found that doing that research and taking action on those steps has been profoundly soothing for me. So over time, I've actually relaxed into the outcome that so far this has been a really healthy pregnancy. Chances are this is going to be a healthy birth as well. A majority of VBACs actually end in a vaginal birth, and I worked really, really hard to facilitate mine. That kind of confidence, I think, has come from not like trying to work things out in my head, but actually taking concrete actions. Another thing that I've done is core rehab. So as I mentioned, my son was large and I had a significant diastasis recti after he was born, which is when the muscles in the wall of your abdomen actually separate a little bit. And that's relatively common after pregnancy. Healing a diastasis recti can really, really help with pushing, can really, really help with posture and back comfort during pregnancy. So I've done physical therapy for my core and to rehabilitate my core. It's not an exercise program. It's actually physical therapy, and I'll put a link below to the program that I've done, which is an online program. The other thing that I've sought out is good chiropractic care, and I want to make a distinction here between chiropractic care and good chiropractic care. I did not have good chiropractic care when I was pregnant with my son. I had a lot of hip flexor pain during my first and second pregnancies, and so to address that, I did see a chiropractor for a little while. And I saw a chiropractor who advertised herself as specializing in birth and worked in a birth center, sort of. And I found that over time, I was actually in more pain when I left my appointments, that it was not making me feel better. So I stopped seeing her. So this time around, after I hired midwives, which I'll talk about in a little while, I took their recommendation on a chiropractor and started seeing her. And because my experience had not been good the first time around, my expectations were very low. She's trained in something called the Webster technique, which I actually think is really important to seek out if you're having chiropractic care, because it's a way of assessing and adjusting the pelvis during pregnancy. And studies have shown that treatment with the Webster technique for first-time moms decreases time spent in labor by 25%, and for second and third-time moms, etc., decreases time in labor by 39%, which is almost half. So for someone like me who's had a failure to progress cesarean, which is basically like I was in labor for too long, that's a huge deal. If I could cut my labor time in half, I'd be golden. I'd be in really good shape. And I have to say that even though my expectations of this care were low, I feel fantastic. The aches and pains that I had during my first and second pregnancies that I took for granted as just part of the ride, like pubic symphysis pain, where the bones of your pelvis meet in the center. I would get pubic symphysis pain when I was walking or anytime I was doing a scissor motion with my legs. That's gone. I don't have any hip flexor pain. I don't have any pelvic pain. I sleep better. I have more energy. I'm not saying this is going to be a cure-all for everybody, but for me, it's been a huge deal. And also feeling better late in my pregnancy makes me feel a lot more optimistic about going into labor and my birth. And the last thing that I've done, which might be really woo-woo for some people, I've engaged in a lot of prayer and self-reflection and meditation. What's really at the core of my fear going into this birth? What am I unsure that I can do? And not necessarily physically, like not worrying about cephalopelvic disproportion or something like that, but worrying about my internal resources as a person and as a woman and as a biological being and as a body. And also engaging in positive affirmations. I've taken those Zentangle size, they're like a coaster. It's just a plain coaster with nothing on it. It's a paper coaster. And what I do is I put an inspirational phrase on there, and then I draw a doodle around it, and I've taped them to my bathroom mirror so that I see them all day, every day. And if you are preparing for a VBAC, I just want to send you all the love in the world, because it's a very, very brave thing to do. To be willing to bet on yourself, it's an amazing thing to do. You really have to engage with a lot of fear in order to plan a VBAC and really like grapple with it and deal with it in a very real way. So I just want to give props to all the moms that are planning VBACs out there, and I am with you. I'm planning my own VBAC. I am feeling hopeful and scared and vulnerable and anxious, and I'm doing it anyway. So I'm feeling the fear and doing it anyway, and I wish the same for all of you. Good luck. In the comments below, let me know any questions that you have or any issues that you're dealing with, and I will try and help you out. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you found it helpful. Thanks.